got a good vibe about me anyway, because I get a funny feeling that we're about to embark on something very, very special here. And I say that because we are joined by the brilliant Mary Dusina. And she's a third generation natural clairvoyant who became very aware of the spiritual worlds in her early childhood. Now, she embraced studying the art of astrology as young as 14, as well as many other metaphysical and holistic healing disciplines. Always happiest out in nature, she could telepathically read animals, as it remains so still to this day. At 19, she was invited to be a monthly resident astrologer psychic for the ABC affiliate in Tampa Bay. And next, she was offered to host the first ever radio show called Cosmic Conditions, where each Saturday night the eager audience called for her intuitive savvy. She appeared as Tampa Bay's wizard on every media outlet and in the local newspaper, giving her yearly prognostications. I think I got that word right. That was a big word for me. Mary offers a most unique style of astrological interpretation after dedicating 20 plus years to study and travelling in native people's medicine wheel ceremonial teachings. Now, she blends the birth horoscope positions with the sacred medicine wheel meanings, and her holistic approach to both her oracle and intuitive reading of one's energy ultimately helps the seeker to navigate their life path in stronger ways, reminding us our answers are within us. How synchronistic, because during the break I was telling all of the people over in the Discord server how we are all on our individual journeys, and I'm just so blessed that I'm sharing my journey with so many brilliant people. And talking of brilliant people, she's here with us right now. You can check out her website at www.marydusina, that's DUSINA.com. So Mary, welcome at long last to the Kev Baker Show.
Thank you so much. I honor our connection and your beautiful audience. And I just, in life, when the dance of destiny sends us certain people, I do feel it's important to take that pregnant pause and just breathe in the synchronistic flow of that and the good karma of that, because it's so important when we look at these little chapters of our lives. And are we the writer? Are we the actor? Are we the actual one that finishes up the book and starts a new book? And certainly 2020 and whoever we're connecting with in 2020 is big medicine, very big medicine. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for being here. So let me take you back to your younger years. It said that at 14 you started doing the astrological work. Have you always been somebody that's been in tune with nature, with the world around you? How did you kind of get into this, Mary?
Well, as a young child, children are either gregarious about packing up and being social, or they're the more intuitive, introverted, shy ones that are more active with nature. And being blessed to be born in the oldest mountains in the world, in the Smoky Mountains, the Appalachian Range, I would wake up gleeful to just get out in nature and to swing on grapevines and run with the creatures. I wasn't the little girl that was scared of the snakes or the spiders or the foxes or whatever it was. And my dad's like, she's definitely not like a typical female child. I mean, those are all her friends up there. And I would go up into the woods, oh my gosh, for hours. I mean, I didn't have the kind of parents. My dad was very scientific, and my mother was very intuitive because she was Pisces, and my father was Sagittarius. So he was very grounded as an engineer and, retired out from NASA. And so he was my open-minded skeptic, if you will. But both parents, I was blessed, let me pretty much, not all the time, but pretty much let me just develop as that kind of female Tarzan that I was. But I remember, and I've told this before, being 5 years old, laying out on the carport in Tennessee and just fascinated by the stars, the canopy of stars above me. And I remember, of course, your parents started coming to look for you around 9, 10, o'clock at night. And so they're hollering for me. And I'm like, I'm out here. I'm out here. So the long story short, I was gazing at the stars, and my mother, again, a Pisces, so she was already second generation intuitive, because my little mountain mama, as we call them over in this country, mama, my little Southern Appalachian mama, was a Pisces, and very just in tune with it all, buddy. She didn't need fanfare. She didn't need attention. She was just, the closest thing I can compare her to would be almost like Granny and the old series of Beverly Hillbillies. I mean, she knew herbs, she knew animals, she knew people. It's just awesome to have her as an elder. But anyway, so I'm being called to come in, and so my mother made the mistake of inquiring, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm trying to figure out how to get back home." And she said, "Okay, this is your home. You have a mom and a dad and a brother. This is your home. It's time to come in." And I said, "No, not that. I mean home." And this was well before E.T. came out with Phone Home and longing to get back home and ride the bicycle up to the moon. So it was very natural for me I just thought everybody believed there was life on other planets, and there were many other galaxies, further enhanced by my father being at NASA and me asking questions about space and having that whole engineering background. And so my mother had some astrological books in the house, which was pretty rare in Tennessee, I can tell you that. My grandmother knew plants and would walk me around in the woods, and Dad would identify the trees, and Mama appreciated my ability to want to heal an animal, save a dog, just take care of creatures in need. And she was fascinated that I was never scared of any insect or anything like that, whether it was a tick getting on me or I I just need to pull it off and get rid of it. I wasn't the squealing type. So I found that when I came into those preteen high school years, when we had to move to Florida out of Tennessee because Dad got hired in a big position at NASA, it was like I didn't want to leave the mountains. And so I was very sad. I knew I was going into a tough adventure because Florida was much more city and social. And it was, and Dad said to me, he said, I was 11, and Dad said, "I got to get you out of the mountains for a while." He said, "You're absolutely just going to be some kind of wild buck. You've got to start communicating with people more." And I said, "Why? I like animals better than people." And to this day, Kev, to this day, I still prefer nature and animals to most people that I encounter.
I would agree with you. I find myself loving animals a lot more than I love my fellow man at times. I think a lot of us feel that way. And in your bio there, it mentioned that you were kind of connected to the animals intuitively. Is this akin to what we would call horse whispering, cat whispering? Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
Absolutely. I mean, my dad would go, again. I mean, we lived in the country, but if we went by the cows, I'd be like, "Stop, stop. I have to get out and talk to the cow." And Dad's like, "We really need to get to church. I said, "I want to say something to the cow in the field. That cow is sad over there." And even when I moved to North Carolina, and I'd lived in Florida for a while and gotten all cityfied and done all these media markets, and you do the sassy media stuff on terrestrial radio, and you learn about the marketing, and you learn about the people envious of you and try to take your slot behind your back. Yeah, that's interesting. And we would, whenever I would take trips out in the country, it'd be like, I was looking at real estate in North Carolina, and we were riding along. It's my mom and my dad and the realtor, and I'm like, "Stop, that calf has gotten out of the fence and its mother is crying." We're going up this country road in North Carolina, and the realtor's like, "What?" And Dad's like, "Just stop the car. Just stop the car." And the realtor's, "Why?" And he said, "Because she's not going to buy any house or do anything unless you let her talk to the cow and get the baby back with the mother." So I got out. Here I am in high heels and stuff. And I get out, and I'm like, "It's okay. I'll get your calf," And I'm like, "Come on, come on." And I'm like, "Everybody else stay in the car. It'll run." And it just, the baby wanted to get with the mom. And Dad said, "Now watch how the mother cow will look back at her when she gets that calf in there." And as we were driving, the realtor's like, "Holy crap," because the mother cow looked at me and did this really long moo as she started to lick the calf. And Dad's like, "You just don't question her with animals. It's something she was born with. Just leave her alone." But it was good to have his scientific leaning, because when, I was dating a surfer guy in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and we were just going to the beach, and we'd grabbed our Kentucky Fried Chicken, French fries, and Coca-Cola like you do in your teens. And surfers like to get to the beach at dawn. So first they go surf, and then you have your breakfast at like 10:30 or 11 when the places would open up. So after we got our little beach snack, we happened to walk into a surf shop because he needed some wax for his board. So we walk in there and I happen to look around, like 7 of us, and I'm like, oh, tarot cards. And the owner of the little beach shop, which there were really great beach shops in Cocoa Beach, said, "What did you say?" And I said, "Tarot cards." And he said, "You're the only person that ever pronounced that the right way." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Most people say it like it's spelled. They say tarot. They say tarot cards." And they asked me what they are. And I said, "Those are really pretty." And he said, "They're yours." And I said, "What?" And he said, "They're yours." He said, they're supposed to go to you. It's good luck if your first deck is given to you." And I said, "No, I'll pay for them." He goes, "No, no, no. They're yours. They've been sitting there for 2 years and no one ever showcased them and said it the right way but you. So I've been waiting. You're the right one." And I still have that deck.
Wow.
I still have that deck. So it's a Rider-Waite deck.
That's amazing, Mary. I mean,
It really took me back.
It sounds to me like I approach life very much similar to you. Signs and feelings and gut feeling. The audience, they get fed up with me going with my gut feeling, but I tell you what, it usually keeps us right. But I think you were definitely meant to walk into that surf shop that day and get those cards.
Absolutely. Well, and I say to my clients all the time, to your point, there are signs and wonders and oracles and meant to be-isms all the time if we just shift our vision. And most people in the TikTok world, and that's not original, I got that from Stuart Wilde, who I had on my radio show. He's since passed into the great beyond. And Stuart Wilde was a rock and roll metaphysical guy, and he really tried to help men when it wasn't so popular for him to do the warrior's wisdom out of Taos, New Mexico, and his beloved place in Australia. And he was the son of an English diplomat, and he kind of wanted to get away from all the, nose up in the air stuff out of England, out of the UK. So he would say, in the TikTok world where we measure everything by appointments and times and just our material assets and who we can hobnob and goober smooch with, he said, you realize all of this, we need to be reminded it can be wonderful, it can be sexy, it can be challenging, it can be collapsing, we can have our feet knocked out from under us, but it's all temporal. It's temporal. And what's real is that you are a spirit walking this world for a while, and it's good to ascertain what's the big picture, what's it all about, Alfie, kind of a thing. So for me, like the guy at the surf shop, that was what I call an immortal effect. Because here I sit in the 5th decade of my life, still remembering that guy, didn't even know his first name, Kev, didn't know the guy's name, but here still, that's a poignant immortal effect, meaning that for the entirety of my life, that would be an exclamation point. That would be an empowerment point in my life. It was a marker in my life. And those things get piggybacked upon with so many other kinds of things. It becomes a reference point that there are people that we may see in a very brief, unexpected, unusual way, but there's a cosmic charisma, there's a supernatural soul, a soup that happens in that moment. And if you just shift your vision, like I do with the cows or the foxes or the bears, and you shift your vision, and when I connect with someone in a human skin, when I connect with a human and they feel like what I feel on the alpha level with animals, I pay attention. Now, don't get me wrong. I've helped many, 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 many humans get untangled and unstuck, but I myself don't need to hang out with a lot of humans. I want to do my job. I want to get in and give it 100%. I want to hit it the first time to give their sadness and ability to be lifted up again. But I'm not that intuitive and I'm not that astrologer. But it says, okay, you need to sign up for 52 weeks for, once a week if you really want to get serious about your enlightenment. Oh, no, thank you.
No, this is something that for me as well, it's something that can't be trained. That's not to say that maybe training from somebody with natural abilities won't enhance them, but I don't think you can just, walk into somewhere and, like you say, go to a 52-week course and end up being able to do what you do. And I want to pick up on something you said there, that we come here for this experience. I call it the physical spacesuit that we wander around in. And I want to ask you, I mean, in your opinion, do we come here once, or are we here many times? And the reason I ask that is because this has been one heck of a crazy year, but the past 5, maybe 10 years, I've started to notice, Mary, that it feels like a lot of the people I come into contact with via the show, or people that listen to the show, and we've got a really good rapport with the audience. We've got our own little server that we hang out on and things. But my question to you would be, are we reconnecting with our, for lack of a better term, I don't know how to really explain it, our soul family? Are we
Yeah, tribe,
entangled with
tribe.
people, yeah, that we've been here with before in other forms? Maybe I was Mary last time, or is that
Yep.
what's going on here?
I I always try to approach it because people can be so divisive, and I'm not being cagey about it. Personally, I believe the soul continues to evolve. I don't have I'm not going to claim to be a know-it-all about which solar systems and which planets and which um, temple forms that we take on various planets. I believe and I do believe in it, if the soul's evolvement is true and reincarnation is true, then I believe that it's a part of our souls advancing, that everybody thinks they're always somebody famous in a past life, that I've had a very nondescript life. I've been a male, I've been a female, I've been an abuser, I've been abused, I've been the alcoholic, I've dealt with alcoholism, I've been rejected, I was the one that rejected. And as we advance, then that heart set, the magnetic frequencies of our heart, we come in, maybe the little, like Men in Black, the red here, just look here into this red dot and they erase your memory. I think that goes on. Edgar Casey talked about that. A lot of the people in theosophical societies talk about that, Krishnamurti, Yogananda. But I believe that when we have certain people trigger us, we have that deja vu of like, I don't know how I know you, but I know you. I know that you are not like other people I meet. I know that you're a soul son or a former partner. Maybe you were a parent, like you said, in another lifetime. But I know that we connected. And I believe that 2020 has been such a historic, iconic, celestially, historically, it's been such a mile marker of a year that I believe that, especially in the last 3 months of 2020, first we had to have our focus slammed inward by what we were told we couldn't do. And in my lifetime, it's the only time I've ever known that basically the entire world went into lockdown in the pandemic fear type of a thing. So, it might have been there's World War I and World War II and Vietnam and Korea and the Iraq War and all these kind of things. And maybe we were a little too complacent about other people going through strife and tragedy. This year, everybody had to deal with the big awakening for me is what we had gotten too complacent about. And to your point, who is coming out of this year with us that's authentic and genuine and rich and doesn't play with our feelings and respects our vulnerability and truly shows that we're valuable to them in this lifetime. As I told you, I came to know you through Ryan Gable. I love the way he researches things. He's just tough, buddy. He's just going to dig in. And
He's
if anybody wants to
phenomenal.
argue with him,
Yeah.
he's going to come back, buddy. He's prepared. And I've been with the Fringe FM and Joe Root for 2.5 years as their house psychic and astrologer. And the first time that Joe Root got a hold of me, I'm like, okay, I know him. So when we have that clearance, like you and I talking now, when we have that kind of a soul wave of camaraderie that comes in, it's just like, this may be the first time, but it's not the last. Somehow we're meant to know each other, and maybe not just in designated avenues that we may think that we know right now. It can, again, it can be that.
It might be the first time that Mary and Kev are talking, but it might not be the first time that we've talked.
That's right.
We
That's
may
right.
have been here before, and I want to ask you, why 2020? Is there stuff going on with the planets right now? Is it the part of
Oh,
space?
yes.
So talk to us about that. I'm sure the audience would love to hear what's going
Well,
on.
I have to, when you're an astrologer, it's a sky clock. And so whether I'm doing someone's earth temple birth chart, or I'm the actual birth chart of anyone that you and I are talking about it's like a pirate's treasure map. It's got to do with your soul signature. But then we look at what's called the outer planets. So regardless of what's going on in Kev's chart and Mary's chart and your audience's chart, an astrologer that's seasoned over time has to look at, okay, what's the theme? What's the dynamic of my measured 12 months of the year? And the main element, is it earth, fire, air, water? What's the main element? Where are the eclipses? Where are the nodes? And so back in 2017, in August, the third week of August of 2017, there was the first in a long time, very rare event that was called the Great North American Eclipse. And it was on the 21st of August, and it was in what we call a fated degree. It was in 29 degrees of the lion, Leo. Now, the sun is the great star of our Milky Way galaxy, and when anything big damn deal happens in Leo, or a pronounced mathematical degree of Leo, because when you studied numerology like me, 29 adds to an 11, and that's a master teaching. Eclipses run in 18 and a half to 19 months, and it takes that many years. I'm not going to get too technical. It takes 19 years for them to come around again. So when I looked at that eclipse and decided, okay, I happen to be in a region in the country, in America, that the eclipse, I'm in one of the big zones of where it's going to happen. So I carved that niche out in nature because I knew it was going to be an upload. And then in 2017, all of us, regardless of our position on this planet, we got a major, big time star upload to prepare our frequencies for what was going to be coming within 3 years. So in my lectures and my predictions and my prognostications, as astrologers do that have been doing it over 20 years, I started saying to people, I'm telling you, when we get to 2020, I'm telling you, there's a stellium, which is like a bunch of planets in one sign. It's just a fancy word. There's a stellium of 7 impacting celestial events. They're going to be in the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is Chronos, father time. Saturn in mythology ate his own kids. I mean, this is intense stuff that's coming up, and Saturn represents the skeleton of our body. The bones know. Even the Bible talks about the bones know. So I knew that it was going to be a bare bone. Our foundation was going to be rocked and checked, and we would come on the other side of this looking at what I thought mattered in my life, what I thought my goals were. Once we had the eclipses that started on December 28th of 2019, and then as we got to January 10th of 2020, that's when that lineup was happening of 6, 7 energies in Capricorn. Then we had the eclipse bouncing around in Cancer Capricorn, and the Cancer Capricorn energies are the patriarch and the matriarch. So what kind of, I can be female biologically this lifetime, but how do I nurture myself? How do I mother myself? How do I restore myself? The patriarch, what kind of a provider am I? What kind of how do I restore myself? How do I make my life more productive in this world? What's my mission? So we all got hit with these primal daddy, mommy, reckoning type of issues as those planets lined up, and they hadn't done that in this incarnation. We've not lived through it. They had not done that in over 748 years. So I kept saying to people, I can't tell you what it's going to be. I can tell you that I don't have a reincarnation in my mind right now that I'm pulling up of where I remember what that was like. Do the math, go back on the internet and look at 748 to 750 years ago and look at what the big things are recorded, if it's true, that were going on this planet. Because you know as well as I do, Kevin, you've been on the planet about 20 years, you start realizing that what they taught you in school, science and math, and what they tell you in the news, it's what they want you to know.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that, Mary. You hit the nail on the head there.
So the precursor, although we didn't see it at the time, the precursor was 2017 in that eclipse. And then we had a very big shift in January. And the people that have the signs of Cancer Capricorn really strong in their chart, like the moon or the sun or the rising sign, realized that this was a year for them to shed an old skin, that the eclipses that were happening in 2016 up through 2018 when they started to shift at the end of 2017 into Leo Aquarius. People that have those signs of Cancer Capricorn had to go through a bit of loss and
Hold
some
that
health
thought,
issues.
Mary. Hold that thought. We will be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Well, did I promise you a special show today, or what? I think we have found ourselves an amazing individual in Mary Dusina. Now, Mary, I must apologise if I'm not pronouncing your surname correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, and let people know where they can check out your work, Mary, because I know that right now there's a lot of listeners that are very impressed by what you're saying.
Thank you. You are pronouncing it right. I tell people, most people spell it with the C but it's an S, but I tell them, think about do and see. Are we all doing and seeing as we should be in a win-win fashion? So it's Dusina, it's Italian, Dusina. And my website is simply Mary Dusina, DUSINA.com. I appear monthly. There's several venues I go on, but I'm the house astrologer psychic for the Fringe FM, Joe's show, Lighting the Void, and I come on at every new moon. He wanted to lock me in once a month on a very special time. So he said, you know, if other people want you on, then you can do a full moon with them, or you can do this or that. So I appear whenever there's a new moon, which is when the sun and moon marry or are both in the same sign. At the full moon, they are, as the Arabic astrologers would say, they are separated or they are at odds with each other, but yet it's a polarity thing. So at the full moon, the sun and moon are exactly 6 signs apart. So Joe and I decided on the new moon. And so that's when they can catch me at midnight over here in Easternville in Tennessee. They can catch me at midnight Eastern time. But it's a time where the new moon is a time of seed planting, but the full moon is when people are looking at what is like the stick in the wheel for them to go forward. So full moons, I love the full moon. It's a very magical time to be able to look in the mirror and have that conversation with yourself intuitively and psychically saying, where might I be getting in my own way? So I love full moons for that, Kev. I love full moons.
Mary, I'm sitting here smiling and shaking my head because I've got a guest, Kevin. He's of Native American stock, the Anishinaabe tribe. And he always asks me if he can come on the new moon. He is. Now, let me ask you about the moon then, on behalf of Kevin. He talks about how in recent years he's quite concerned because he's noticed that the lunar cycle is not what it should be. Now, let me preface this by letting you know that Kevin is somebody who, unfortunately, thanks to the US military, he went to the Gulf. He suffers from Gulf War syndrome. He's partially sighted. So with that in mind, not that it even is any relevance, but have you noticed any difference in the moon in the past couple of years, that the cycle of it, anything at all that makes you kind of sit up and think,
Well, back to that eclipse that happened, the great regal eclipse that happened in the 29th degree of what it matters in our solar system. We are of the Milky Way. Earth's great star is the sun. So that eclipse, I think I may have forgotten to tell you this, Kev, that eclipse had not happened for 99 and a half years.
Wow.
So again, it's pertinent to this incarnation. So I looked at that and I thought, okay, that's a great solar eclipse in the 29th degree of Leo. The sun rules Leo. It favors Leo. So everything's got to do with how the sun and the solar storms and the geomagnetic stuff. I mean, it's just been the Schumann resonance. Everything is just, well, as we're speaking, tonight is the strongest night of the Orion meteor showers. There is, on October 20th, NASA, there's a live stream going on the internet now. There's Osiris Rex is launched, and it's going to land on Bennu, Bennu, and Bennu goes back to the Egyptian reverence of, it became the phoenix, and the Egyptians and the Arabic people referred to the Bennu or the phoenix as the bird with 1,000 eyes. When you think about native totems and medicine bird totems and land totems and the swimming totems. So that made me go, whoa, we are right now in the middle on this day, as Kev and I are going to talk. It's the Phoenix and it's Bennu. So like on my Facebook page, I started putting Phoenix and Bennu, and the Wikipedia, and it's like, look at this for all of us right now, because it's happening above our heads. There's a lot of things that are going on to do with that very mythological medicine show of Bennu Phoenix. The other thing is, what hit me, back to your Native American, your First Nations person, what hit me and riveted me, and has nothing to do with political preference, is when Space Force got launched, when Space Force was launched as our, I think, the 6th military branch. Because one thing, my father had a very high security clearance. And so he didn't talk about what was going on at NASA. He didn't, except he would drop little tidbits like, of course, this has all come out, in over 20 years. And he said, some of the head Nazi people from Germany came right over to Cape Canaveral, Florida, because all the top people, von Braun, Debus, they're all German, the head of NASA here in Florida. And I'm like, oh, really? And he said, yeah. So he would drop that and let me go research, kind of like a Ryan Gable thing. He would give me a pearl and I had to go diving deeper for it. And he said to me, like, I was 16 and we would do these promenades, we would do these family walks. And for some reason, my mother was busy with my brother or whatever. And so it was just Dad and I walking around. Of course, they moved people all over the place to be toward, Cape Kennedy. I'm 16 and we're walking, and I said, do you believe that there is intelligent life out on other planets and other galaxies? There's so many of them. There's so many of them. No matter what you believe in the creator, there's so many other galaxies. And look at the animal forms here. Look at the difference between a giraffe and a palmetto bug. It's just so intricate. How could it not be? And he stopped. And usually when he stopped, it was like, ruh-roh. I probably asked a question to do with sensitive clearance, being a Sagittarius. And he looked at me and he said, I shudder to think that we are the most intelligent life forms out there. Of course there are. And then I'm like, okay, I better not push it. So we kept walking again. And then I said, well, I believe in UFOs. And he turned and he looked at me. And I said, I do. I know that it means unidentified flying objects. I also believe that there are unidentified aquatic objects. And I said, and I know you're a skeptic, but I've already seen 3 unidentified flying objects. And I said, and I've had vivid experiences in my dreams. I've not been abducted. I've not been had medical experiments done on me. Of course, I got into MUFON in Florida. And I said, but I know that I'm from the stars. I've known that since I was 5. You know that. I said, I don't know which star system, but I know they're my real brothers and sisters. And I said, and that's why I'm going to spend time out in Taos, in Santa Fe, in Angel Fire, and I'm going to the Hopi Reservation. I'm going to go to the Apache and the Hopi Reservation, and I'm going to go to the Anasazi because they revere the star beings and the star people. And he said, I think that would be very good for you to do, but I think it will round out your knowledge. And he said, and I said, but I just want to say this. I know that the military, the black ops and all, but I know that a lot of the unidentified flying objects, we have secretive stuff. And I know that too, back to your caller's point. And he looked at me going to the Gulf War, and he looked at me and he said, never forget this. You know, that little computer that you like and all that? And I said, yeah. And he goes, anything that the governments let the people play with, we're 50 to 60 years ahead of them in the military. And he said, in NASA is the #1 secretive military base.
Yeah,
Let's look at it.
I can appreciate what you're saying. I was in the army for 4 or 5 years, but I got a glimpse at the technology that was just around the corner. It was mid-90s, and I was over in Florida, probably the same time you were there. And then we were at MacDill Air Force Base. This is getting weird if we were in the same place at the same time.
Oh
but
my God, because the MacDill Air Force Base, my cousin, who's retired Special Forces Green Berets, went out of MacDill Air Force Base all the time, and they shut it down in the 90s to the public. I used to lecture at the MacDill's offices.
Yeah, they've got the kind of U.S. command. It's like the communications center there as well. So I got to see firsthand the internet and what it was going to look like before most people had it in their homes. So I can totally back you up on what you're saying here. It's like me and you were on such the same page because I believe in UFOs, and like you, unidentified can mean ours or otherworldly, and I think there's both going on. I
I
truly
do.
do. Yeah. And
I do. I do.
one quick thing on the NASA before we move on. I've got so many questions in my head here, but you mentioned Bennu and Osiris X.
Yep.
What is it with NASA and their symbolic names for missions? What is it? Are they just tipping the hat?
Well,
Is there some magic to it?
no,
Talk to
no,
me.
sure there is. Sure there is. It's just like they say, hiding. Every military guy will say to you, especially when they do psyops, hide in plain sight. It's the safest place to be.
Yep.
But Dad, like I was all into the Star Trek, and I love Mr. Spock, and I was watching it all the time, and he would say, "Look at the name of that ship," and I said, "Yeah." And literally, my parents bought a condo, and I walked out and literally saw the rockets, and it was part of our. You know how parents kind of mandate that you do certain things. Well, Dad was real big on we kids had to go to these launches. There was no if and buts about it. There's a launch and you're going. And all the NASA people at the time, no matter how high their position, there were so many people coming into Little Titusville and Cocoa Beach, Florida, and Cape Canaveral and all that they had to go on these tour buses with all these tourists and take them through the VAB and all that kind of stuff. Well, Dad was trying to rest one time, so he had a little Volkswagen, and the NASA clearance pass was in the Volkswagen. So I said, "I'm not going to Dairy Queen." So I took his pass, and I went out to stupid teenager, and I went out to the launch site. And of course, there was a part of Titusville Beach that was where all the launches and the secret stuff was, kind of like Area 51, Play Linda Beach, and you didn't cross that line like people know about Area 51. Believe me, I tested it. So I pull up to this launch site because certain people could only get so far, right? You had to be with that NASA employee. And so the NASA guard, if you will, said to me, "It takes a special clearance to get past this point." And this is so arrogant. We've all done it in our life. And I said, "And I have that pass right here. See this last name?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "I'm related to Kurt Debus's daughter." And he goes, "Go on through, ma'am. Go on through," just like that. Well, I lied. I absolutely lied. I'm not proud of that. But I got so close where all the media was in the stands where you could actually hear the roar of the rocket. Okay, in the meantime, I'm looking, thinking, I got to get back. He's going to come off shift. He's having this lunch. So I drive back in the driveway. And of course, they'd already got a hold of my dad, as military does. And he said, "Really? Really? Kurt Debus's daughter? Are you kidding me?" And he said, "I could lose my whole job with that." I said, listen, I'm totally wrong. And you can restrict me. I don't know why I did it. I just really wanted to get that close to the rocket. So after that, he took me with him with that pass, and we would go. And I was there, Kev. I was there back there when the Challenger blew up.
Oh, dear. Wow.
I was on site. Yeah, I was on site, and CNN was there at the time. And CNN was like really just getting going. And we're right there. We watch it go up. And of course, this kid's seen a lot of rockets go up, right? And Dad and I looked at each other, and I'm like, row, like that. And then CNN, I didn't know it, but the teacher's family was standing right next to Dad and I, because remember, we had special clearance. And this CNN reporter, it was a female, I don't remember her name, I don't care. She went toward the mother, she goes, "How are you feeling right now? Not knowing what's going up there. Is it an explosion or whatever?" Because there were so many people watching it. It was historic. And I turned around to that reporter and I said, "I will take that microphone and hit you over the head. What's wrong with you?" And she said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Your worst nightmare. Get away from McAuliffe's family." And then Dad said, "I've got a NASA pass. You need to move away from the family." So it's just so rude. I mean, anything for the story, right? So
Yep,
I backed that.
If they say if it bleeds, it leads. It's
Oh,
disgusting.
God.
But
Yeah.
I was in school watching that, Mary. I remember watching that. It's kind of seared on my memory. I'll never forget that day either. I've
Well,
always loved NASA. Always loved
yeah.
space. I know NASA get a load of they get a big hard time. People seem to think they lie about everything, and it's not. It's that they, like you said, this is one of the most secretive, classified kind of programs imaginable. And if
Yep.
we were to know half of the stuff that they really were doing, it would probably
Oh,
make our minds boggle. And I'm open-minded.
yeah. He said to me when they were putting together the International Space Station, of course, Curious George here, I said, "Okay, so we have all these wars. It's mainly about money, and we fight with this one, and the Russian wall comes down, and Germany does this, and blah, 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 and all that." And I said, "And yet We work with Russia all the time at the space station and NASA. We have Germans that come over here. You know, maybe Hitler went to Argentina and we made a deal and we got their top scientists because they had the first spaceship. And I get that. But I said, so if we're at war with these China and Russia and Germany, yet we go up on the International Space Station. And I said, and you know, they don't strangle each other up there. I mean, they don't try to kill it and drive it into the planet or anything. And he looked at me and he said, okay, the International Space Station. He said, again, that is the most powerful, secretive military base. He said, it's literally, remember Star Wars, how you loved Star Wars? I said, oh, yeah, that first Star Wars with all those creatures in the bar. And he looked at me and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to ask some more questions because you're giving me that look like that's real. And he said, there's so much that people couldn't handle even if they were told. Number one, they wouldn't believe it. Number two, it would shatter them psychologically. And number three, they're not on a need to know basis. And he said, and like I met, you know, several of the astronauts. I mean, Dad met the presidents, he met the astronauts. And when I went to hear these astronauts that would come, of course, as you know, to Florida and speak to Florida's MUFON chapter was huge because everybody wanted to come to Florida in the winter. So the MUFON chapter was huge in the Clearwater area. And when I was meeting Neil Armstrong and all these different people that would come, Linda Moulton Howe, who's been an icon they were all there.
Yeah, I've had her on the show. That was one of my finest moments, having Linda on as well. It's right up there with having you on, Mary.
Oh, thank you so much. Here's a good story for you. So I went to one of the MUFON meetings. Now, of course, I don't know who John Mack is. Okay, so before the meeting would get started, my neighbors at Indian Rocks Beach were the head of the MUFON Clearwater Indian Rocks area. So we would have coffee and breakfast first. Her husband, an engineer, and she ran the whole MUFON thing. So they said, Mary, this is John Mack. And I'm thinking, I think I've heard that name before, but I didn't want to be stupid. So I said, oh, good morning. And so then the engineer husband, who was a Sag like my dad, born on the same day like my dad, December 1st, said, Dr. Mack is the tenured psychologist, head of the psychiatry department at Harvard, and he's writing a book. And I said, oh, like that. He goes, Mary loves psychology. She's into all that. She's a natural intuitive. She's TV and everything. He said, so you're sitting with the real deal right there. And I said, what's the name of your book? And wasn't it Abduction?
Yeah.
I think it was. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, I said, wow. I said, isn't that a risk for the head of the psychiatry department of Harvard? And he said, oh, I'm tenured. And I said, okay. And I took another sip of coffee. And my friend, who was the engineer, said, go on and ask her. Ask Mary what she's thinking. I'm just shooting him a look like, no, I don't want to say it. And so then Dr. Mack says, no, tell me. And I looked at him and I said, I don't care what you think tenured means. Remember, you asked me. I said, you're going to lose that position at Harvard. You're going to get a divorce. You're going to end up marrying your secretary. I said, your wife's going to bail on you because she's used to the conservative guy, you know, the steady job, everything's predictable. And I said, and although what you're doing is going to be historic and mind-blowing and pioneering for the rest of time, I said, I worry for you with this. I worry for you with this. Well, do you know what happened to Dr. Mack? He was stepping off a curb in London and got hit by a car and killed.
Yeah.
And he did divorce his wife, and he did marry his secretary, and he did get kicked out of the psychiatry department. And I just said to him, protect yourself. Make sure you protect yourself. And he said, why do you say that to me? And of course, my friend Jean Brown said, her dad worked at NASA. Just listen to her. She knows about this kind of stuff. Sure. And I just said, protect yourself, because that's not woo to NASA. That's like exposing things before their time.
This is I'm really regretting that we didn't get you on for the 2 hours now. I could speak to you for about 5 hours, but listen, let me take you back to the astrological stuff before we run out of time here. And I gave you my birthday and my birth date earlier on today. I don't know if you need the time of my birth or whatever, but we've been on now for an hour or so. I get that it's remote. We're doing it almost different parts of the world. But I sense that you're somebody that picks up on energies of most people you come into contact with. Anything you pick up from yours truly, or my birth sign, or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I'm a Scorpio. I'm born on Halloween night, and I do not give out people's birth dates or their specifics on air, because when you studied astrology as long as I have, it tells a lot about a person if someone wanted to be
nefarious. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to say to you, because of the water element, being very strong in your chart, your luminaries, the sun and the moon, are dancing in the element of water. There are 3 water signs: Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. And I will say to you that you are definitely fed and nourished when you are looking at water, walking quietly by the water. If you can get to any kind of craggy knoll with the ocean, I mean, especially salt water, because it's those ions. And let me tell you, speaking of First Nations people, because I lived right in Treasure Island, so I was right on the water, and my Native American teachers and I that I did ceremony with through Dade City and all those areas there, we would go to the beach at night, and we would be doing our healing medicine at night, because tourists don't go to the beach at night unless they're going to drink and go have dinner. But, when you want to go do ceremony and be in nature. And he taught me, he said, the oceans of our Earth Mother are the embryonic fluid. And so when we get in those salt waters, when we're by the salt water, whether you swim in it or not, you are being reborn. It's baptism. It's the salt and the effluvia of Mother Earth's womb. When you go to the mountains, I said, yeah, I'm missing them. And I spent 20 years in Florida. I said, I'm missing the mountains. And he goes, this is the breast of the earth. And when you go to the mountains anywhere on this planet, you're being fed the mother's milk, and the spirits of the mountains embrace you and take you in. So for you, your main medicine comes from the restorations of the embryonic effluvia of Mother Earth. Your Mercury is in the water element, but then your male energy planet is in the earth element, and your luck planet, Jupiter, dances with the earth element as well. So for you, it could be like
no luck.
Autumn and spring. Yeah, autumn and spring, and the new life coming out in spring. And when it starts, rather than it being at the beach when it's just hot all the time, even though, we tend to favor the season that we incarnated on the earth with. I will tell you that something jumped at me, that you went through a very strong time of reckoning between 2004 and 2006. I feel like that was, whether the bird's molting its feathers to grow new feathers or the snake sheds its skin, I feel that was a time where maybe there were separations or losses or health challenges or stifling stop signs that hit your life in that 2-year period, but you came out of it stronger, and you came out of it more of an aware spirit of how to tend to and respect your physical earth temple because of that time frame. And I feel like that you need quality alone time. I feel like that any of these healers or nurses or herbalists or exorcists or people that are able to grant your audience and your listeners supernatural seeds and seeds of greatness and supernatural awakenings. And you heal also if you recharge your soul battery. So nature, music, you need safe, reliable, kind people. So you're going to attract, because of your moon sign, you're going to attract nurses and people that work in hospitals and different forms of therapy and holistic herbs and first responders. I mean, you have a real heartfelt respect for the people that go out there and save and rescue people from crisis. And I feel that you're doing that through the venue of your show, that you might showcase something about exorcism or vampires or this or that or trauma-based things. But your avenue, your contribution to that would be, talk to my audience and the listeners about how the trauma doesn't have to always stay, and they don't have to always be tangled up in the wound. Your avenue would be, there's a way out of this, people. There's a way out of this. This is not your ultimate lot in life. An infection got in to your energy, but there are healers and there are avatars and there are way showers, and I want to be a conduit to get that to the people.
That's exactly the whole idea of this show. To bring people on with a message that I know other people need to hear. I love my own company. I need my own company from time to time. Most of the female side of my family are nurses and paramedics. Try to think what else you hit on there. 2004, 2006. Yes, I did go through an event that I don't want to talk about on air, but it was life-changing. It was life-changing. And I'm blown away here because, you know, my mum and anyone that knows me really well, they kind of laugh at me because if I can get a chance to go and jump in a bath, I'll go and lie in a
Yep.
bath any chance
Yep.
I get. I know that sounds weird, but that's why I
No,
was laughing when you were saying it.
the first baptism is water, the second baptism is by holy fire. So when we listen, when I would do my groups in Florida, when I would do my medicine wheel, the sacred hoop ceremonies that I was taught, I would say to people, bring only water to the circle. Do not touch it till we're done respecting the elders and the ancestors and blessing 7 generations back for all the people. Their DNA courses through your veins and their trials and their tribulations and their making love and their sorrows and their deaths all are a part of us. So you always, not just on Samhain, not just on All Hallows,
Oh,
you
honestly,
honor.
Mary,
Yeah.
you're off the charts. Good. I've been blown away, and I can't stop talking about my octopus teacher. It's a documentary on Netflix, and today I was talking about the ocean and saying how much I'm just in awe of the water world. But I want to squeeze in one quick question. You've maybe got 30 seconds here. And this comes from one of our... oh, we don't have time. Listen, folks, check out Mary Dusina. She's going to be back on here very, very soon. Next month, hopefully. Wherever you are, make it TFR and Denny touch that dial. I'll be back tomorrow with John and Lee from the John and Lee Show.